Right, well there's quite a lot of reasons why people might want to cycle into Kirkbymoorside or from Kirkbymoorside, you know, whether they're going to school or to work or to see friends or for pleasure or to keep fit or or to reduce their car use. There's quite a lot of reasons. So for quite a while the Environment Group's been looking at facilities for cyclists and making it easy for people to get around by bike without having to go on the main roads. People might remember quite a while ago we were talking about the Riders Cycle Trail route from Thirsk right through to Scarborough, and the little bits of that might come through Kirkby, and it's nice to report that we're now going to get a little bit of that from the school right through to the roundabout. It's going to be widened so that there's going to be a dual cycle track from people to get to school or get through alongside the 8170 and to go on the 8170. Another bit we're looking at is a bit across the front of the sports field, just so people can get onto the sports field or through to Keldholme from the bottom of the old road. We've got permission from that from the Sports Field Association and from the county highways, and we're looking to fundraise for that now. It's going to be about £10,000. We've got about 2,000 so far, and we've collected in bits and pieces towards that. The other thing we've looked at is whether some of the cycle racks people have seen in town. We've got 4 cycle racks installed quite a few months ago now to make it easy for people to park when they come into Kirkby, park the bikes up. We've asked some of the people who provide accommodation if their accommodation for visitors can include sort of cycle storage, then people like to come want to stay and bring their bikes with them as well. It reduces the number of cars in town, and it's a good way of getting around.
So just to sort of backtrack a bit, the cycle path that you're talking about from the primary school right up to the roundabout, who's supporting the creation of that?
Well, we originally got support from the highways, county highways, for that, and also the school and the police and the town council at the time all sort of said, yeah, that's a good idea. We tried to get some lottery funding. This is about 2.5–3 years ago now, but the lottery said, well, no, it's a highways project, and highways said, well, no, it's not on our priority list. So we sort of got stuck at that point. But then with the Tesco development, people needing to get the opportunity to get to Tesco by sustainable transport, not just by car, or to sort of nip down there or sort of go down after school on bikes or whatever, then Tesco said they'd be willing to pay as part of their access plan. So
Right.
Tesco are funding that. Highways provide their specifications, but Tesco will be finding the funding for that all the way up to school. Of course, the school have just got the new cycle shelter, which the Environment Group helped get the money for, so it all fits in quite well, making it easier for children to get
Because there's already quite a few children who are cycling along there with their parents running behind them to try and keep up. It's quite a popular route, but obviously it's not geared up for cyclists.
Yeah, and the school haven't been able to encourage cycling to school up to now because it's not been a safe route, but it's getting better now.
So what's the time scale for that? Have you got any idea?
I don't know. I should imagine it'll happen along with the new Tesco development, but I don't know what the time scale for that is now.
But there is a definite commitment that will happen.
Yeah.
And what's it kind of going to look like? It's presumably a sort of a much wider tarmac path with designated lanes.
Yeah, it'll be a dual cycle footpath, and I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but it'll be. I think it'll be split with signage to indicate which bit cycles need to be on and which bit people need to be on, because obviously that makes it safer for everybody. I walk and I cycle, so I can see it from both angles. And then each time you get to a curb, there has to be the proper markings and the drop curb and the signs and things. So yeah, there'll be sort of signs all the way along indicating what. I'm not quite sure what happens at the roundabout end, at which point they cross, and how that's all going to change with the Tesco development. I'm not sure.
Right.
But actually, I mean, that's the highway's responsibility to make sure that's all as safe as possible. And
then, so from the school, travel down, the people will be able to cycle down to the roundabout, cross over the roundabout. From then on in, it's a bit narrow as you're walking past towards Cook's Garage, so that's a kind of a dismounting area, and then hopefully, as you say, the latter part of it will be in front of the sports field, and you straight on down to the quiet road of Keltholm.
Yeah, once you've got to Keltholm, you can either go left up to Hutton the Hole, and which, you know, there's lots of nice routes from there onto sort of Lewisham and Appleton and Moors, and it's lovely up there for bicycles. Or you can go right towards Marton, and then the bit between the A170 and Marton is quite busy, but once you get to Marton, there's lots of little back roads again. You can get all the way through to Malton on minor roads, or you can take the sort of back road all the way to Pickering from there, which again is quite, it's not much traffic, it's very nice for cycling. So it's a route. I've recently seen a lot of sort of cycle clubs, you know, coming along those back roads, of some sort of serious road cyclists come along there, but also for local people like me who get around on the bike. You know, it's nice. You know, you don't have to go too far. You can still get, you know, have a nice little ride out.
I mean, with your work with the Environment Group, and in particular the transport work you've been doing, have you noticed, you know, with all these great efforts that you've been putting in to encourage cycling, have you noticed anything in terms of people increasing their use of bicycles? Or is it too early?
We have noticed. I don't think it's down. I mean, we're just part of something much bigger, I think. I mean, certainly since the Olympics recently and all the success of the Olympic cycling teams, there just seems to be lots and lots of bicycles out. I mean, there was a big craze for mountain bikes, you know, a year or so ago, and that's still quite big. But again, that involves a lot of people taking bikes on cars to off-road places. But recently there just seems to have been lots of road bikes, lots and lots of people out on road bikes all over the place, particularly on the weekends. So it feels like we're part of something bigger, you know, we're contributing to making it easier for people to get in and out of Kirkby by bicycle. But we're just like one part of something that's really happening all across the country.
So Rupert's going to arrive any second. We're going to have a chat with him. But before we finish, could you sort of put up your invitation for other people to get involved? Because I'm sure there are lots of jobs and opportunities for volunteers to get involved within the transport group.
But we'd like people to get involved with the sort of the talking side of it, you know, and encouraging maybe local accommodation to get more cycle friendly, or going out and talking to people about cycling. But we'd also like people to help with on the fundraising side for this little bit between the bottom of the old road and the Keltholm road. The other thing we're part of is the Environment Group are part of the Raising Cycling and Rydale Network, which meets several times a year and brings people from the county and the Rydale District Council, the Tourism, Cycle Touring Club, and Sustrans. We're working together on the sort of the Rydale area, looking at encouraging different routes and improving facilities and improving sort of infrastructure. So people want to get involved on that level with that network. That's quite exciting at the moment. There's quite a lot of opportunities for different projects. It just needs a few more people to get involved to develop that.
So how do they get in touch with you? Via the Environment Group website? Is that the best way?
There's a contact number on there, and there's also my email addresses on the Environment Group website. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you.
You got here eventually, held up a little bit by the rain, but
Yeah.
it's great to meet you at last. So, so Rupert Douglas, yes, could you tell us your title and a bit about Sustrans, who you work for?
Yes, well, I am working for Sustrans, which is a sustainable transport charity, and it has a regional office, Yorkshire and the Humber region, which is based in Leeds. So I'm working for the region, looking particularly at how we can enhance and develop the National Cycle Network, which is one of Sustrans' sort of key projects, particularly in the sort of East Riding of Yorkshire and North Yorkshire area. And I myself have recently moved more into the area. I live on the Yorkshire Wolds at Fridaythorpe, so I'm well placed to sort of start looking at that on behalf of Sustrans.
And how big a job is that? Because you hear about new cycle paths have been developed all over the place, but North Yorkshire and the moors?
Yeah, well, I've been involved in more so in East Riding of late, particularly from a sort of a tourism point of view. A number of things we've been doing now. We've developed a new coast-to-coast cycle route between Morecambe and Bridlington, which comes through York and across the Yorkshire Wolds to Bridlington. We've also developed a circular route around the Yorkshire Wolds, and we've also developed some day rides, big skies, bike rides. So all those sort of three things have come together quite happily at the same time, and have really started to sort of have an impact in and around the Yorkshire Wolds. And in doing that, and bearing in mind that the Yorkshire Wolds isn't all in the East Riding, it also comes into North Yorkshire and Rydale, we've started to sort of think about connections, you know, to the north and through the Rydale area. And so, for example, we're looking now at creating a link between Moulton and Pickering, which brings us to the sort of bottom edge of the North York Moors National Park. And then with, you know, some enthusiastic input from local supporters like Helen here in Kirkbymoorside, for example, and others, we're starting to look at how we can sort of link across the bottom of the North York Moors, so that we can link the likes of Pickering with Kirkbymoorside, with Helmsley and so forth. And in fact, I've just come from a meeting in Scarborough where we're looking at improving the coastal alignment of National Route 1. But again, when you're in Scarborough and you're thinking about linkages, you know, in other directions, we ought to be having a link between Scarborough and Pickering. So, you know, for different types of journey, whether it's tourism or shorter everyday trips.
I mean, it sounds to me like an enormous job, because you must be dealing with loads and loads of different landowners when you're trying to create a route like this. Can you give us an idea of kind of, you know, you've just mentioned some that you've completed. What kind of timescales are you looking at from?
Well, it does depend on, I mean, we are in the North Yorkshire Highway Authority area, and it does depend on where we decide we want to sort of have the route. And if it's on the highway, it really is a case with dealing with the Highway Authority, which in this case is North Yorkshire. If we're looking for off-road traffic-free sections, it could involve other landowners. And you're right, it does take time, you know, with inputs from local people and other organisations to really refine where you want the route to go, so you've got it as a safe route, so it's attractive, and it's a route that people are going to want to use. And then you sort of go into various sort of processes, and in the case of North Yorkshire, they, as a highway authority, do insist on consulting about any new proposals for cycle routes. So that builds in extra time, and some, you know, in some cases people don't always think your proposed cycle route is a good idea, so you then have sort of objections to deal with. And then above and beyond that, where we're looking to create new route, there could be some infrastructure issues, at the very least there'll be signing issues. That all has to be funded. And as a charity, Sustrans is very much looking for external funding, whether it be from the Highway Authority or other sources, to actually, you know, deliver the route on the ground.
So Sustrans themselves don't come in generally with money?
Not generally. I mean, it has had funding in the past from Heritage Lottery. It does get money directly from the Department for Transport for schemes, but understandably that money does tend to sort of go towards more populated areas where there's more emphasis on, you know, converting people from taking short journeys in cars to choosing to walk or cycle. It's more difficult in the rural areas with lower populations, and that's often where something that's, for example, you know, there's a tourism emphasis, bringing people into the rural area, we might find funding, you know, from tourism-related organisations concerned with economic development, to actually create a new route, which will then also benefit some local people who happen to be, you know, on or near that route.
Helen was mentioning the Olympics and the kind of hopefully the legacy of interest in cycling. Have you seen that having any impact?
I think cycling has been, you know, on the rise for some time, particularly, you know, tracking the success of some of our British cycling stars like Mark Cavendish, Bradley Wiggins. So with them winning, and Team GB, Chris Hoy and so forth. So with them winning the Tour de France and the success we had in the Olympics, I think we're anecdotally, whether it's talking to bike shop owners or just seeing people out in bigger numbers on the road, cycling is definitely seeing another step change, I think, in terms of its popularity. And that, of course, creates opportunities, because what do people want to do is to go cycling in nice places where the scenery is lovely, the routes are good, there are places to stop for refreshment, places to stay, and I think those of us that are involved in looking at developing the network and the product more generally in terms of the wider Rydale area see lots of opportunity here, but we do have to get the right routes on the ground. And there needs to be some information and some publicity and other marketing. So it is quite a process, and we're just starting to get interested parties together. Because of course this area has already had some success from a mountain biking point of view with the developments at Dalby, which is great. But I think there's a lot more interest in sort of road-based cycling on quiet roads, on good cycle paths, and so that if we can add that to the mountain biking developments in Dalby, I think it could have really quite an impact in this area.
But we're in hard economic times.
Absolutely, yeah.
So are you optimistic looking to the future that within sort of a 5-10 year timescale we might be looking at a lot more routes around this area, which is quite short of routes, as you were indicating earlier?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, there's no doubt that funding, in some senses it's never been easy. It's even more difficult now because the sort of sources of funding from the public sector, whether it's the local authority or we don't have a regional development agency anymore and so forth, and the emphasis is more on can we get sort of developer contributions, for example, and Helen has been successful in that here, and that's a good example of that. But when you've got an aspiration to create many miles of route, such as I've mentioned, it's not always, you haven't always got a development coming in at necessarily the right time, and then you've got to negotiate with the planning authority for them to make it, to talk to the developer. So it does become quite a protracted process. But I think the working with the likes of the North York Moors National Park Authority, who we hear are making greater efforts to attract visitors to the North York Moors National Park, and as a national park, I'm sure they want to do that as sustainably as possible. So cycling should be featuring in there, quite strongly. And I think one of my jobs is to sort of talk to them and sort of bring them together with the Highway Authority, with Sustrans, with the Forestry Commission and others, to see what we can sort of create through working together that will benefit both local people and local businesses.
And finally, what would you say to anyone watching this film who's mad keen on cycling, wants to get involved, wants to support cycling in this Rydale Kirkbymoorside area? What would you say are the best things for them to do?
Well, I think if they want to support the development to create more opportunities, there are opportunities with Sustrans, for example. We have a programme of volunteer rangers and other supporters. So if you like the idea of supporting the development of the National Cycle Network, they can then contact Sustrans, and we can sort of recruit you as a volunteer. There are local organisations such as Helen represents that you can get involved in to support things at the local level. And as a cyclist, I was with my partner, we were leading a guided ride from Pocklington at the weekend as part of the Yorkshire World sort of outdoors and walking festival, and we had a good turnout. And there's a lot of people sort of asking about opportunities for where can I go cycling, who can I go cycling with, and there are a number of events now, I think, in this area, sportive type events for the more, if you want to go a bit further, a bit faster, the Rydale Rumble and things. And I think that's something we can be looking at as a group as well. How can we perhaps provide some more guided ride and other events? The local CTC group, they organise some rides as part of their sort of Olympic effort, and I think have had some success in getting some more people out cycling. So look for events and look for opportunities to contribute, you know, through Sustrans or other local organisations.
Brilliant. Well, we'll put some links
Yeah.
on the posting, so that will, you know, if you can give me some links, we'll get those on.
Happy to do that.
That would be great. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.